Yeah, but see, the touch of death is horse shit.
But see, you're
Like
an
when
expert.
someone's like, ha, and they touch you in the chest. But we don't have the ability in the body to generate that kind of energy.
How do you know that?
That's a good question. It's never been done. We understand so
How do you know
much
it's
about
never been done?
physiology.
How do you know it's never been done?
Okay, there could be someone out there with magic that has escaped my grasp.
No, you've talked about with Graham Hancock, and you've talked about the history. Maybe it was in Roman times, that idea was discovered, and then it was lost. Because weapons are much more effective ways of delivering damage. Now, I find myself in a very uncomfortable position of defending the concept, as a martial artist, defending the concept of this.
What martial arts did you study?
Jiu Jitsu and Judo and wrestling.
Those are
wrestling
the
is-
hard ones.
Those are the
Jiu Jitsu, Judo, and wrestling,
Yeah.
those are absolute martial arts, in my opinion. This is what I mean. Like, if you are a guy who just has a fantastic physique and incredible speed and ridiculous power, you just can generate ridiculous power. If you just are you know who Deontay Wilder is?
Yes.
Heavyweight champion of the world, boxer.
He's you have what's his name?
Tyson Fury.
Tyson Fury on tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yes.
Two undefeated guys, right?
Yes.
Oof.
Deontay Wilder has fantastic power. I mean, he just knocks people flying across the ring. I think Deontay Wilder, if he just came off the street, if he was 25 years old and no one ever taught him how to box at all, and you just wrapped his hands up and had him hit a bag, he would be able to generate insane amounts of force.
Yeah.
Now, if you were a person that really didn't have much power and you had a box with Deontay Wilder and you were both of the same age and you were a person that knew boxing and you stood in front of Deontay, it's entirely possible that Deontay Wilder could knock you into another dimension, even though he had no experience in boxing. If he just held on to you and hit you with a haymaker, he might be able to put you out. If you're a person who is, let's say, built like you, a guy who exercises, who's strong, and then there's someone who's identically built like you, who's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and you don't have any experience in martial arts at all, you're fucked. Right?
Yes.
If you're a person who's built like you, who's a guy who exercises and is healthy, and you grapple with a guy who's even stronger than you and bigger than you, but he has no experience in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, he's still fucked.
Yeah.
That's the difference. That's why I think Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Judo and wrestling in particular, those are absolutes in that you have control of the body.
Yes.
And once you grab a hold of a person's body, there's no lucky triangle chokes in Jiu-Jitsu.
That's right.
Right?
But I think I would say Jiu-Jitsu is the highest representative of that. I think in wrestling and Judo, having practiced those, I've never been quite as humbled as I have been in Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
Especially when I started, I was like powerlifting. I was a total meathead. And, you know, a 130-pound guy or girl could tap you easily.
Yeah, it's confusing.
It's very confusing. In wrestling, you can get pretty far with that
Strength.
meathead power.
Yeah.
And in Judo, a little bit less so at its highest levels. If you go to Japan, for example, where the whole dream of Judo is to effortlessly throw your opponent.
Yeah.
But if you go to gyms in America and so on, there's some hard wrestling style gripping and just beating each other up pretty intensely, where we're not talking about beautiful Ichimadas or these beautiful throws. We're talking about some scrapping, some wrestling style.
Yeah.
fighting.
No, I see what you're saying. Yeah, my experience with jiu-jitsu was very humbling when I first started out. I had a long background in martial arts and striking, and even wrestled in high school. And then I started taking jiu-jitsu, and a guy who was my size, and I was young at the time, and he was basically close to my age, just mauled me. And he wasn't even a black belt. I think he was a purple belt. He might have been a blue belt. I think he was a purple belt. And he just destroyed me, just did anything he wanted to me. Choked me, armbarred me, and I remember thinking, man, I am so delusional. I thought I had a chance.
Right.
Like, I thought just based on taking a couple classes and learning what an armbar is, and then being a strong person who has a background in martial arts, that I would be able to at least hold him off a little bit.
No. And this is, that's so beautiful that I feel lucky to have had that experience of having my ass kicked in Philadelphia is where I came up with. Because in science, you don't often get that experience. In the space of ideas, you can't choke each other out. You can't beat each other up in science. And so it's easy to go your whole life. I have so many people around me telling me how smart I am. There's no way to actually know if I'm smart or not, because I think I'm full of BS. And in the same realm as fighting, there's no. It's what Hicks and Gracie said. I mean, or some Saulo Ribera or somebody that the mat doesn't lie. There's this deep honesty in it that I'm really grateful. Almost like wanting, you talk about bullies, or you talk about, or even just my fellow academics could benefit significantly from training a little bit.
I think so too.
It's a beautiful thing to almost. I think it's been talked about in high school, sort of requiring it.
Yeah,
I think
we've talked about it many times, yeah.
I think it's a more humbling sport, to be honest, than wrestling, because you could, in wrestling, like I said, get away with some muscle.
It's also what martial arts are supposed to be, in that a small person who knows technique can beat a big person who doesn't know the technique.
That's right.
That's what we always hoped for, right? When we saw the Bruce Lee movies, and Bruce Lee, who was a smaller guy, could beat all these bigger guys just because he had better technique.
Yeah.
That is actually real in Jiu Jitsu, and it's one of the only martial arts where that's real.
Yeah, and I have in Philadelphia, it started. You had Steve Maxwell here, right?
Sure.
That's kind of where that was the spring of Jiu Jitsu in Philadelphia.
Yeah, he was one of the very first American black belts in Jiu Jitsu, like way back in the day. I believe he was a black belt in the very early 90s.
Yep.
When Jiu Jitsu was really just starting to come to America. And he had Maxercise in Philadelphia.
It's still there. And then I trained at Balance, which is a few Gracie folks, which is Phil McGlarese, Rick McGlarese, Josh Vogel brothers. So all those, I mean, especially Vogel brothers, these couple black belts, they come up together. They're smaller. They're little guys. And I think those were the guys that really humbled me pretty quickly.
Well, little guys are the best to learn technique from.
Yeah.
Because they can't rely on strength. There's a lot of really big, powerful, 250-pound jiu-jitsu guys who never are going to develop the sort of subtlety of technique that some, like the Mayao brothers, like smaller guys who just, from the very beginning, they've never had an advantage in weight and size. And so they've never been able to use anything but perfect technique. Eddie Bravo's another great example of that too.
Okay.
He competed in the 145-pound class.